Hello, class. I'm going to start a series of videos that really go to taking what we have, which is a fairly decent drawing, but turning it into hopefully a nice clean drawing that looks great, that sort of gives it your own personality, and really captures a good rendering. And the first of that we're going to do is we're going to go and look at colors. And in class I'm going to talk about color theory and various ways of doing that. But for this video demonstration, I'm really going to focus on Illustrator's tool where they have a color guide and how you can do that. There's many other ways of coloring up with good colors. You might even be really great at looking at it just using your eye, and that's not a bad thing to do. But again, for this video, it'll just be using the color guide from Illustrator. And the color guide is up here, and so what it really consists of is it consists of a base color, which is your current one selected, which I'll get into how you decide right now. White is not necessarily the best choice, but then it gives you, based on this color, a variety of selections. And it comes up, if you pull this arrow down, there's actually different ways. These are all based on some color theories. Again, I'll go over in lecture exactly what some of these mean or why they're even part of the theory anyway. And you can select one and say, oh, well, maybe I like that color range. And again, it gives you a bunch of colors that work well together. And so the idea is if you change your colors in your drawing to colors sort of within this box here, it'll really make a nice composition. Now, that's a good place to start. It's a great place to start. In fact, I find using this really does improve my color work, because right now the colors on my screen, they were just sort of picked ad hoc. They sort of work together, but I think there's some clashes between like the various colors on there, and it could definitely be better. So while this is a great resource, don't be afraid to also go beyond the resource or tweak it from there, and I will even do that in this demonstration. And the reality is, don't be afraid to even try different combinations. So you can already see I've got a couple that I sort of pre-tried up here that go in two different directions, and they both work well together, but they're different takes on the idea. So don't be afraid to try different things to get it to the way that you want. And I'll show those examples once I show you exactly how it works here. Now the key for Illustrator in this color guide is really to pick a good section for what you want your base color to be. And so in this drawing, I would say, you want to look at it and say, okay, what is the most important color? Or not necessarily most important color, but which one stands out and you think you want to drive the architecture. So for me, I'm going to go, in this demonstration, I'm going to go with this red maroon color, because that's sort of like a highlighted color of the house that if I pick a good color there and work the rest of the house elevation off of that, it should really start to work. And then I'll let the subtle colors like the green and the blue sky work with those colors as well. But since the grass is just grass and the sky is just sky, it's not really part of my architecture. It becomes less of an important element. So I'll let it follow those other color choices of the architecture. Now you don't have to go with the red. Maybe you think the brown. And again, I don't know how you colored your house. You're free to color it any way you want. So maybe you have a bright color here. Maybe your trim work is a color that you want to go off of. I've even seen students do it successfully where they've chosen the green, because the green in this drawing is such the biggest element on here that, hey, I want to nail that down. I don't want everything else to go around it. That can also work too. So really, it doesn't matter which way you go. So you have lots of choices to choose for your base color, and then once you do your base color, you do have lots of choices even within that. Although they're not limiting, and in lecture I'm going to talk about other ways of selecting colors in this or that. But we're going to go with that. So I'm going to go with my base color. What you might want to start out with is saying, okay, well, I want that red to be my base color, or whatever color you're choosing, you want it to be your base color. I'm gonna unlock that layer here, and you might spend a minute or two just making sure you get it exactly the way you want. Maybe I want it a little more red, a little brighter. I don't know. I'm just gonna tweak it myself. I think it was pretty good, but I'm gonna go with that. All right, and then I can lock that layer. And what you really need to do is have your base selected color here, your fill color, as the color you want as you move on to these other objects. So I'm going to next do my siding. So I'm going to sort of work from my elevation as sort of the most thing that color influences in architecture. And then I'll go let that influence my plans and then the background. So in that sort of hierarchy. So I'm going to do my siding next. And I'll select my actually, sorry, I don't want to select my siding yet. I'm actually going to go and eyedrop that red, because again, if I want to base it off the red, I need to have that red here before I start my color guide. So I have my base color as this red, and I'm going to come here, I'm going to look around as what I might like to do, and I think I might try sticking with tetrad here. But you can pick whatever one of these you want. All right, I'm gonna pick tetrad, and now I can select everything, and these colors stay the same. And so I might pick, okay, well, you know what? I think my elevation's a little dark, so I'm gonna try lighten up the brown a little bit. Maybe something like that. That'll look good, right? So now just tweak that brown color just a little bit to pull it more close to the red. And that's all it takes, right? That's the simplest. I'm gonna lock that. I'm gonna say, okay, that layer's good now. Now let me go to my trim. I'm gonna unlock my trim color. I'm gonna select everything, and I'm gonna keep that in the same row, I think. And I want it to be dark. So that's too light. That's getting a little dark. That's definitely way too dark. So I'm going to start here, but also don't be afraid to tweak, because I feel if I deselect off of this, I feel that A, this might be a little bit too dark, and B, a little bit too saturated. So I'm going to just go. I'm going to start it as a base, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to lighten it a little bit, and I'm going to saturate it a little bit. So I'm going to pulled it up on this square and pulled it left on that square. You know what? I like that better. And I could probably, the reality is if this wasn't a video, I might sit here for a long time tweaking these elements. And don't be afraid to spend time to doing this, right? I'm giving you a long time to do this week's assignment. Spend lots of time getting the color just right. So we'll go with that. And then the rest of my colors on here, they're pretty much gray tones, and grays generally work with everything. So I might tweak, I might make things lighter, I might make things darker. One thing I think I will do in this video is I'm just going to go to the brick, and I'm going to make it a little bit darker. I had felt my elevation originally might have been a little bit too dark. But now that I lightened particularly the main mass, I actually lightened the red a little bit and I lightened this brown a little bit. I think I can go a little bit darker for punctuated sort of elements, which is what these sort of the brickwork is supposed to be. So I can go darker there. And I should say maybe your bricks are a color, which might be the base color that you work with. The reality is, I mean, that could be a great thing. You go to a local region, you see what brick manufacturers are there, you pick the color brick you want, and then you design the rest of your house colors around it. Is a great strategy in the real world. Of course, this is sort of a fictitious drawing, so we can do that. But either way, now hopefully. This drawing is reading a little bit better, at least in the elevations in color. Now that I have my elevation set, again, take your time doing it yourself. I'm going to go and translate those colors down to the floor plan as well. So I'm going to unlock my floor color. I'm going to, again, grays generally work okay, so I think you might tweak your poche color a little bit, but I have mine set as gray, so it's really just a matter of how dark or light I want, and I think it's pretty good as is. So I'm going to just go to my floor color, and I'm going to come here. I'm going to keep it in the same, oops, and if this happens, if it switches off like this because it's sort of locked into a new base color, I'll just deselect everything. I'll re-eyedropper the red color, right, and it comes back, and then I'll select everything, and I'm going to stick probably to within the same zone. So I'll pull the elevation colors into my plans. And so obviously I need to save a light color for the light color floor layer that I have, so I'll just switch it. See, it was a very subtle change, but it just sort of changed it more into that shade of brown than I had before, which is actually saturating it a little bit, but that's okay. So I'm going to just make that little tweak there. Then I'm going to go to my light, I call it the light floor color, and if you recall, at least in my video, I actually had to redo the deck for this shadow down here, so I'm going to unlock both those layers because those are the same color. And I will come in and choose that light color, which probably is unnoticeable change. I'm sure there was, in theory, there was a change there. And the other thing I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my window layer, which right now are pure white. I talked about way back when some trim, being that color. But I'm going to change this to the same color as my light color. So I might just eyedrop that just to give it a little bit, just pull it in, just to pull the plan in to my elevations just a little bit. And that's not looking so bad. Now the thing that's going to really make the big difference, however, is really doing the sky and the ground. So I'll lock those layers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the ground. I'm going to probably have to eyedrop that red color again. Yeah. So I'm going to eyedrop the red color just to set it in here. One of the reasons why I did tetrad was because it had greens and blues here and the browns. It had all the colors I needed, which is a red, a brown, a green, and a blue. Now, if you don't choose one, you do not have to choose tetrad. It definitely may not be the right one that works for you. Don't be afraid at a certain point to say, okay, this one worked for these elements, but for some background elements or the floor or whatever, I'm going to switch to one of these other ones, right? So you can go ahead and do that. But I'm going to stick here. So you can see I've got some green. So I'm going to select this green, and obviously it's going to be a light green. So I might try something like that, maybe something like that. It's a little almost greenish blue, which is not usually the way I do grass, but it is definitely bringing the colors into play. I'm going to zoom out a little bit and see which one do I like better. That's too light, I think. Oops, that's too blue. There we go. I think I'm going to go with that green for this guy here, and I'll lock it. That layer. Now the sky, because it's a gradient, is going to be a little more difficult to do because I can't really easily pull in from my gradient. I'm going to have to pull this guy out, or one of the tools out anyway. I'm going to see if this, oops, I need to select that guy there. And so I might try pulling this in. So I had to pull that out so I could, because I have to pull this into this field to set it into the gradient. So if I want this to be my light color, I drop that there, and I sort of have to pull away my original light color and then move this over. I know it's sort of complicated, but that's basically what you have to do. And then I might try a darker color. So I might try this color. I click and hold and pull that in, and I pull this away and I pull this down. Now this color was actually lighter than my dark color, so I might try a deeper color. So I might try that one instead, if I like that. And that's sort of looking pretty good there. And so now I could lock that layer, and again I could continue to play with different blues and various things, but I'm going on 12 minutes in this video here. But so with that, that's not a bad setup. Now these colors are sort of working much more unified. It looks like a unified drawing. Then you can save your work. Again, don't be afraid to try with different things. And I have a couple up here. Actually, this one I think is the same model because I pre-tested it. I spent a little more time on it, so I think it's working a little bit better. Really, that's what it takes. Just a little bit of time of tweaking these things can really get it to work well. But I did try another one based off of, here's another one. I think it also is working fairly well. I like the first one better, but I chose a different base color than the red in this drawing, and so it just yielded a different set of results. What I was trying to do is work with the brown and the green to get a more lively green around all these elements, and then set the red against that. But the reality is, since the red is sort of the most important element of this architecture, it definitely works better with setting that as my base color. So we'll save your work. And we'll come back for videos, and we'll start, now that we have the color set, we'll come and add textures and some fun things to this and really learn some powerful tools in Illustrator.